in the last less than 10 years, homelessness has basically doubled in Quebec. The cost of housing has basically doubled in Quebec. Rent has basically doubled in Quebec.
Have wages doubled?
Let me just check.
Let's
Wages have not doubled in Quebec. Like wages have, I mean, the most obvious example of like the politicians do get it, but they only get it like they gave themselves a 30% raise,
of course.
in the last couple of years. And I mean, they didn't need a 30% raise. They're making like $100,000. That's sort of the baseline of what you make in the National Assembly. And what's funny about that is like you get that, but you probably also get a housing allowance. You probably also get your gas paid for. You don't have to pay for a bunch of things because the party and the National Assembly does. They're living high on the hog, man.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kalden Dhatsenpa. I am your host, the host of Local 5 and 4. Today, I asked myself what the hell is going on over in the Assemblée Nationale, and I barely understood. I understood some parts of it. Sounds like there's a lot of hullabaloo, and I thought, who best to help me decode the workings of the provincial government than Christopher Curtis. Thank you for coming on.
Couldn't have picked a worse guest.
Chris, I disagree. Chris is the editor-in-chief of the Rover, a fantastic journalist, has been around a while, and I've learned recently has quite the Instagram following.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's what that's how I start a conversation. 31.7 thousand followers. Okay. Wait, let me check.
Sir, we asked your name.
Yeah. 30.8. 31.8.
There we go.
It's stupid. Thank you. Yeah, I know it's important. No, like Instagram is where people are getting their news, and I think what's cool about Instagram beyond, I mean, it's like there's so many things that aren't, namely that it's owned by an evil corporation and Mark Zuckerberg is a joke and all that. But what's cool is that I think it just rewards authenticity. Like you can get shadow banned and whatever, but people will share your stuff because, I mean, just look at like, to speak about provincial politics. Do you remember Geneviève Guilbeault like posted a video of herself on Instagram where she's like walking and smiling and she's kind of like
robotic.
She's trying to like be human.
Yeah.
And it's a nice contrast to how polished everything is when you see it on television or when you see it in sort of like through a marketing or public relations perspective. So I think it rewards messiness and authenticity, and I'm nothing if not messy. So
I mean, you're
we'll see about the authentic part.
Your reels are just classically, you're giving like all your followers these updates about the news just from your basement.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what better place to update anybody about the news than in the safety of a concrete bunker. It's not good. You saw the rally this weekend. You saw how many people are out in the streets, not just for Palestine, but for workers' rights, for labor. I mean, our institutions are falling apart. And when you look at the mainstream media, and this is not like to shit on them, they do a lot of great work, but it feels like they're not meeting the urgency of the moment. And when you look at the provincial politicians, it really feels like they're not meeting the urgency of the moment. I mean, in the last less than 10 years, homelessness has basically doubled in Quebec. The cost of housing has basically doubled in Quebec. Rent has basically doubled in Quebec.
Have wages doubled?
Let me just check. Wages have not doubled in Quebec. Like wages have, I mean, the most obvious example of like the politicians do get it, but they only get it like they gave themselves a 30% raise,
of course.
in the last couple of years. And I mean, they didn't need a 30% raise. They're making like $100,000. That's sort of the baseline of what you make in the National Assembly. And what's funny about that is like you get that, but you probably also get a housing allowance. You probably also get your gas paid for. You don't have to pay for a bunch of things because the party and the National Assembly does. They're living high on the hog, man. And so they get it. They gave themselves the bonus to like, so they could keep that high on the hog sort of like, so they don't have to live like chumps like the rest of us. But it's not translating, it's not translating to the way they see sort of treating transit workers.
Of course.
Treating healthcare workers.
They're not
treating
thinking,
doctors.
let's give ourselves this bump. But of course, this is going to be reflective of how we give the rest of society, all our public workers a bump, because it's been quite the opposite of that.
I'm of the philosophy that like the general eats only when all the soldiers have eaten.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
There we go.
I mean, not to like turn it into this big militaristic thing, but like if you're on a team, which I would hope that this is what we consider the province to be, you know, like a family, a team, whatever. You got to make sure everyone's okay. Instead of taking
this is good, like kind of like leadership coaching kind of tip.
Yeah.
They should all once they all see this episode, they're gonna know. They're gonna know what they gotta change.
But if you're in politics right now in the Quebec and you look at how unpopular the government, like they're historically unpopular. If there were an election held tomorrow, there's a good chance they wouldn't win a single seat.
Zilch.
And that's after having one of the most dominant election results in the last election. They just ran away with it, and they have over 100 seats.
Well, even back in 2018 when they won, it was super majority. Right? It was not even close.
And the second time was even bigger. So this collapse is a huge opportunity for the other parties, and the only party that seems to be benefiting from it is a party that might actually be further to the right, Parti Québecois, and a party that actually might have even bigger internal problems and whose future is kind of a mystery because, like, they only have 3 elected members in the National Assembly. We don't know who their candidates are going to be. We don't know if, like, Mathieu Bock-Côté is going to run. I don't think he will. Like, that would require for him to not live in France, and I think that's kind of against his constitution.
Probably cozy there.
But no, so all of which is to say the Liberals are just blowing a golden opportunity with this stuff with Pablo Rodriguez.
Yeah, I mean, let's get into it. Pablo Rodriguez, current leader of the Liberals. I mean, I feel like the story of Quebec politics is always kind of like the Liberals and the PQ sort of like sharing power, right? But then that was kind of the big story in 2018 when the CAQ broke through. They're like something new, a coalition for the future of Quebec made up of a bunch of different kind of...
Yeah, made up from the worst people from the PQ and the worst people from the Liberals. I should say the castaways from the PQ and the castaways from the Liberals.
Let's make our own party.
Yeah. I mean, one of the first, this is funny, one of the inciting incidents that sparked the creation of the CAQ was that Quebec, the PQ and the Liberals both agreed to fund a $300 million arena in Quebec City to bring back the Nordiques. And the CAQ was like, François Legault and a bunch of other people kind of rebelled. And I mean, what a luxury it would be to have a government that only wastes $300 million on an arena.
Legault just repeating the same thing.
But no, I mean, on to the Liberals, like they have a big opportunity. And
right, because I mean, to me, that's like before, like the classic thing is like in this kind of dynamic of like the sovereigntist provincial party versus the federalist provincial party. The CAQ is now sort of like this kind of breaker in there, right? Where they're like, guess what? We're going to be nationalists, so we're going to take those voters from the PQ, but we're still going to be federalists. We're not going to ask for an actual like referendum or anything. And because of that, that's how they're able to get these super majorities, right? But nowadays, it's like people are kind of tired of it. They're looking for an incredible crash of the next provincial election.
Oh yeah, I mean, you like it's I believe, and this is not a reference or any kind of like my politics, but like the Obama administration said this thing about Russia that I find actually pretty telling. And he said about Putin, he's all tactics, no strategy. And I mean, when you're a dictator, it's a lot different. But in a democracy, the bill eventually comes due, right? Yeah. So like whenever they were in trouble in the last 8 years, they would just switch to identity politics. Yeah. You know, whether it was immigration or like right now, all this huge press on like taking away the fundamental rights of workers, taking away the fundamental rights of Muslims. Let's be honest, all of this religious neutrality stuff is kind of like a very poorly disguised attack on Muslims.
Of course.
You know, freaking out about Anglophones, freaking out about any kind of like identity issue. And it worked. Like it got them elected. And then it got them reelected because they weren't elected and reelected because of their economic performance. They weren't elected and reelected because they actually got things done. No. They were elected and reelected because people were tired of all the bullshit of the identity politics, I think, between the PQ and the Liberals, right? The Liberals were always elected with a sort of like blackmail thing where they'd be like, if you don't elect us, the PQ is going to separate from Canada. Yeah. And PQ could turn around and say, if you don't elect us, Ottawa is going to govern Quebec. And I think the CAQ tried to promise the best of both worlds. I think we had got the worst. Exactly. We got the crony capitalism of the Liberals and the empty identity politics of the Parti Québecois. And can we list the number of economic disasters that we've had under the CAQ? Like fucking Northvolt.
Yeah.
What are we on the hook for? Like at least $500 million there. We invested $800 million in Airbus to support the local manufacturing industry. That investment has now been written down to $400 million.
Yeah.
There was something like $1.5 billion or $2 billion in direct checks to Quebecers that had no effect on.
Oh yeah, the $500.
That actually probably made inflation worse.
Yeah.
It's printing more money. And I mean, I'm not an economist, but like that's my read on how money works. And then of course, Northvolt was going to save them, and all of this has collapsed because it's all tactics, right? It's all like, how do we get ourselves elected? How do we,
I think to me the two real big moments of like real collected kind of resentment against the CAQ. The two big ones I can think of is sort of the Foncomer, giant labor protest, right? Against it was the public sector protest
a year ago.
Almost exactly a year ago. Huge, massive, one of the largest in Quebec's modern history.
I think it was the biggest in North American history in like the last however many years. It was a huge,
massive. And then you see people there, right? Because that's when you see the CAQ being what they're going to be, which is like sort of center right, bringing austerity from like the Liberals. So that's kind of part of the worst of the Liberals out there. Like, all right, austerity for our public sector workers, and absolutely no one stood for it. Massive strikes. And one thing that I thought was beautiful is massive public support, of course, for these striking workers. The second kind of, I think, pivotal moment for the CAQ had to do with the forestry bill, right? The bill to modernize forestry. Because you saw, I mean, this is something I was paying attention to real close. Because just seeing the players, like the belligerents, as it were, like you had the CAQ, Quebec government on one side, and on the other side you had unions, you had a multitude of indigenous groups,
people who live in those regions,
of course,
like non-indigenous folks who live out there as well,
environmentalists, people who are sort of researchers, scientists, all this kind of collection of people, and then of course the rest of civil society who are in disagreement with it, kind of building up to fight this kind of bill, and they dropped it immediately once they realized how costly it would be for them. But I think that the sort of damage is too late, and it's sort of like it's already been a long history of these kind of disastrous bills.
They don't have that much time left to legislate before the election season is upon us.
And you can see them sort of rushing with things like Bill 9, right? And
I mean, Bill 2, Bill 9, the doctor bill, the labor bill, like it's all they're trying to rush. They're trying to fast forward some kind of legislative agenda. They're trying to, they're trying to capture, I think, the resentment of a lot of Journal du Québec, Journal de Montréal readers who are against unions because the columns are constantly blaming everything on unions.
Of course,
they're trying to capitalize on the anti-Montreal vote, but it's just like eventually you have to have an original idea. Eventually you have to build something or create something. Eventually you have to just not destroy I love how we were supposed to talk about Pablo and we're talking about how bad
I think it's important that we
have to put it in the right context.
The scene, right? It's setting the scene.
And so but I mean the thing about the Liberals is they actually to go even further back, they started as a workers a pro-worker party. They emerged after those the dark era of Maurice Duplessis' Quebec,
of course,
right? Where unions were beaten down, where foreign investors were given priority over all of our natural resources, where academics were accused of being communists, woke communists, one might say, like today. So that sounds pretty familiar, right? So it seems reasonable to think that a pro-worker Liberal Party that invests in just the idea of Quebec controlling its own destiny, but also Quebec not being this backwards looking place. But they're not that, or they could be that. Instead, they're playing classic liberal games. So Pablo Rodriguez, former cabinet minister, the first sign that I think there's a problem. Former cabinet minister with the Trudeau Liberals. There have been good ones, and there have been very good people in the Liberal government. I don't want to shit on everyone, but former cabinet minister in a dysfunctional government that left when it looked like they were going to get annihilated in the election. So actually him and Soraya Martinez Ferrada both left to come to Quebec politics, one municipally and the other provincially. But so already these little machinations, is it really about you want to help Quebec, or is it really
just
about you want to help Pablo Rodriguez? And then he gets here, and I think he would have run away with the leadership race no matter what. had Marwa Rizki won, she would have run away with the race. But she took a principled stand. Marwa Rizki, if you don't know, is extremely, like, probably the Liberals' only heavy hitter. They're probably their most popular MNA, probably their best MNA, a fighter, someone with a really good grasp of the issues, and someone with principles. She's briefly, either she's retiring or taking a break from politics to raise her two sons. So these are the two main belligerents in this thing we're about to talk about. So like
Pablo and Marwa.
Pablo Rodriguez, Marwa Rizki. So Pablo, it looks like, may have, someone in his camp may have reached out to some Liberal members and offered money in exchange for their support in some kind of financial bonus if they supported Pablo. Pablo then wins the race. This gets reported on by Journal de Montréal. They did a great job. They have a very good political bureau. They always have. And now Pablo's suing them because I think he wants to find out who the source is, which is like, he said he doesn't, but like that seems to be functionally like what he wants.
Right, yeah.
And it looks really bad. And in the middle of all of this, so Marwa Rizki's chief of staff is a friend of Pablo Rodriguez. Her name is Geneviève Hintz. She's been involved in both like provincial politics for a very long time, and she seems to be like a very competent person. But she gets fired because, according to an article in La Presse, some ethical issue came up where I think Marwa Rizki looked it up with a lawyer and determined that her chief of staff had broken some rules, and she fired her. And now Pablo has suspended the most popular MNA in the Liberals from the caucus. So Marwa's suspended. And Geneviève Hintz is suing Marwa Rizki for $500,000. Is this what we need right now? It's like, if you're a Liberal, like, is this
the ship
what the
stable?
party? No. So I mean, they are doing, like, there was a joke in federal Liberal circles where, or federal conservative circles, where they would say, this is around the Harper era, when Paul Martin and Jacques Chrétien were like always at each other's throats. And they said, oh man, the Liberals are getting confused. They started stabbing each other in the front. And that's kind of like what we're seeing here is like they're operators, they're backstabbers, they're all of these terrible things about the Liberals that like everyone was fed up with that led to the creation of the CAQ. They never exercised the party of that. And there's no renewal. It's the same bullshit. And then if you look at like what was Pablo's biggest accomplishment in Ottawa, well, he was one of, I think, 4 or 5 ministers of heritage, culture, or whatever, who tried to tax Facebook or tax Meta and tax Google to give independent media and small media money for kind of, using us as a conduit to like Meta and Google and making money off our content. He was one of the people who pushed that across the finish line. And that has been an abject failure. That piece of, first of all, we didn't get any money from Meta. We actually got banned from putting news on Meta. Ironically, we're on Meta right now, but like we can't link to our
Don't
stuff.
tell them.
No, Meta wants this. Meta wants us to put their shit on Meta, and that's where it lives, and fine. So we didn't get any money from Meta, and we got $100 million. The industry got $100 million from Google. And what Google, and so but you won't get a bunch of that money, and I won't get a bunch of that money. Like us, the small, independently owned, in some cases Indigenous owned, in some cases owned by minorities, like these small media outlets won't get any of this money because they don't have enough full-time employees. Because really, this bill that Pablo pushed across the line was written by lobbyists. Was written by lobbyists for the big corporate American-owned news hedge fund things. And
CUTV has gotten some from that.
Yeah. They have.
We got a little smidge of that.
But I mean, look, you guys have been around for a long time.
Yes.
You're more organized. You're more structured. A lot of the good new media, especially new media that's owned by Indigenous folks, by minorities, they're not there yet to where they can say we have 2 full-time employees. We don't qualify for it because we have two full-time employees. Savannah, the co-owner of the Rover, and I pay each other minimum wage, pay ourselves minimum wage, but we pay, like, in the last year, we have put out about $90,000 in freelance money, and we're not like, it's not like like the Gazette where you get $200 to write an article and you were essentially paid $8 an hour to do it.
Of course, yeah.
Like you're getting 50 cents a word with us. That's good money for this industry, and we're going to try and increase it and keep up with inflation. So like we are doing something different that's innovative. That is, I'm sorry that I'm going so.
No. I mean, I think the whole point is about the bill, right? By Rodriguez and
so we're like
all
companies that innovate are being punished, and companies that created this media, because like it's not like Facebook arrived and the media that was doing such a great job suddenly got caught with their pants down. Like no, the mainstream media was in crisis long before Facebook existed,
right?
And they insist on keeping this dysfunctional business model and sort of just like living on corporate welfare. And the Liberals have continued that, and Rodriguez like just played right into their hands. And that's the guy who's gonna like wants to run this province.
Yeah,
like
the entire province. Yeah.
Jeez Louise,
he
man.
doesn't quite have some kind of like, I feel like when people kind of try to run for these kind of leadership stuff, they have something, they have some like big project that's kind of like proving their track record. Rodriguez is here, and what does he have?
Well,
now?
I don't know.
What does he have? He has kind of like a questionable bill, and then now this kind
I could
of
be
like
wrong.
scandal
He could
stuff.
he could come back and make us all look stupid, but this is a very like this is painfully liberal. Yeah. And I mean like the federal Liberals, they get involved in this shit all the time. These kinds of like backstabby things. The provincial Liberals now, like it's not what we need right now.
Yeah, and just to tie it with what we were saying before, right, about the CAC, and this is like because my assumption is always that like things are going to bounce back to the Liberals, not because I'm a supporter or I endorse
just
politics,
history,
right? Just historically, right? It's kind of like bounces between the PQ and the Liberals, and if the CAC is sort of failing at what they're doing, then I guess the big question to me was, are those voters are the Federalist voters going to go back to being Liberals, or has that just identity group kind of like dissolved, But like it's on one hand, like you have this sort of like new kind of like, it feels like a new playing field, It feels like now you have even on the sovereigntist side, right? You got the PQ with the kind of maybe like this old school project of sovereignty.
Maurice Duplessis sovereignty.
Yeah, one that leans a little much to the right, on some issues, specifically like identitarian and
it's not just on immigration. It's immigration, it's labor, it's people's reproductive rights. Not reproductive rights. It's the whole trans identity thing. I think
the classic anti-woke stuff,
exactly,
that they're trying to co-opt.
So I don't know. Look, it's not a secret that like Mathieu Bock-Côté, who's this extremely conservative, anti-immigrant, essentially peddles the great replacement theory, although he'll never admit to that, but he does.
Of course, yeah.
That guy went on Tout le monde en parle a couple weeks back and spoke about Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon, the PQ leader, in messianic terms.
Well,
which to me means like they're talking and he has a voice inside that party.
When you're trying to get a job.
I don't think he needs it, right? But I think it's the power that he wants, right? And it's the political influence. And he has it. Like he has Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon's ear and like the PQ, like what were you calling it? The Theseus ship?
Oh, the ship of Theseus.
The ship of Theseus. Because I know what that is. They were a pro-labor, like pro-Palestine party in the 60s. And now they are anti-Palestine. They are anti-labor. Mm-hmm. They look a lot like, they were an outgrowth of the early Liberals who were pro-labor and like Maurice Duplessis. They're looking very Duplessist right now.
Yeah.
But
incredibly so.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just such an interesting kind of playing field right now. Where and of course when I say interesting, as in I mean like
it's fascinating. Like
fascinating.
It's good for business. Like we've never had more interest in politics and at the Rover. Like people want to read about it, but it's objectively like. It's fun in the sense that like, wow, aren't we living in interesting times? But it's also like I could use a break from living in interesting times. Could things be boring again?
When I look at the playing field in provincial politics, I don't necessarily see like some fighter who's kind of breaking out and might kind of. I mean, it's also this question of can like a single politician deliver us? No, I don't think so. But in the sense that I think there's something interesting about the PQ kind of becoming what it is. To me, it just sounds like when parties kind of become distant from their initial like. That like inciting movement, right, from the actual kind of ground base and
their supporters, like they even when they had terrible election results, they still had the biggest party apparatus in Quebec history. Mm-hmm. They have a shitload, like over 100,000 members. Like they have like a big membership, and they've always said the membership is what makes the party strong, because those guys, and women, they donate, they volunteer, they're hardcore, but it's also driven them ideologically into this place where, like, you know, baby boomers in the 60s were super open-minded. Baby boomers now, a lot of them aren't. A lot of them have kind of, it's like that classic thing of like, if you're watching news on TV, on like land TV, and if you're watching it on Instagram, like you're seeing two different realities.
Of course, yeah.
And the reality they see is the reality of a homeowner, right? It's like, I don't want to pay higher property taxes. I don't want to lose what I already have. But the problem is like that the percentage of people who have is getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And so, but the PQ is catering to those people because those people show up to vote. Yeah. And I think it's crazy when you think about it. Like they were super pro-union, and then when they elected Pierre-Carl Péladeau, who was like the ultimate union buster, as their leader, I think that signaled the end of any kind of ideology that the party has that's consistent, other than like Quebec belongs to either white Francophone Quebecers or people who are of a racialized background, but they accept the order of things.
Right, yeah.
You know, they're fine, you're fine. And
they'll
they're
play
not going to
ball with how it is.
They'll play exactly. I don't think it's necessarily like an overt racism, but there's like, I don't want to like, I know I'm going to get a call because I said this, but, and that's the other thing is like, they're a party of bullies. Like there is a university professor who said something that was maybe a little bit out of bounds about the PQ, but like said something like, look, they're a little bit obsessed with the sort of like the Aryan, like they're obsessed with like the identity politics. She might have used the word Aryan. Okay. That's a bridge too far. But she hasn't been on Radio Canada ever since. Yeah. Like, so because from what I've heard at the university and from what I've heard within the PQ, PSPP called the school and was like, gave them shit. And so the school doesn't want any more trouble. So they don't put her on the news anymore. So like the PQ is like against cancel culture and against, but they're the biggest practitioners of it.
Of course,
like, PSPP
these
just
things are hardly ever kind of.
No,
like,
you're projecting, right? You're it's cool when I do it, right? So like, Tula wrote some tweet about Anglos not being considered Quebecers by the PQ, and PSPP said that was taken out of context. What does he do? Complains to the Gazette. Tula's got to apologize. They've done this with university professors. They've done this with lawyers. They've done this with a doctor. Marie-Ève Coton appeared on Radio Canada, criticized the PQ, and Pascal Bérubé made a complaint with a CBC ombudsman, even though he knows, because he's not a dummy. I mean, maybe, but he's not a dummy. I shouldn't say that. He's a smart guy, whatever. He made a complaint with the ombudsman saying basically like, this person needs to be punished, whatever. But like, she's not an employee of the state. Yeah. So you're just making a complaint and making a big show of it to like show your people you're doing something, but you know it's ultimately useless.
Of course.
It does have one effect though. It will get all of your followers to know who your enemy are. And then all of these people like Tula, like Marie-Ève Coton, like a bunch of university professors, like historians who dare criticize the PQ, like Vincent Boulay, who was a member of the PQ who criticized their approach to immigration. They get flooded with hateful messages from PQ supporters. Mostly it's kind of like benign, like fuck you, or you're ugly, or in Marie-Ève Coton's case, like, I guess the Botox has gone to your brain, like very misogynistic. Of course, yeah. But there are death threats too. Yeah. There are like implied threats. People go after your job. So like, and so this guy is like, he's probably going to be the next premier. Like if you have money and you have to gamble, I like to gamble. You put your money on the PQ, right? They have a history of blowing leads and of being a little too arrogant, but they have an impressive.
It's a long ways away, I think. In
anything can
terms,
happen.
Anything can happen.
Anything can absolutely, and like believe me, he got an easy time in the election. Like the media gave him a real easy time last time around. I mean, they won't this time.
New young leader.
Yeah.
It's like, his poor party. He's barely has anyone left.
Exactly.
But I mean, I think that stuff. It's so interesting to hear about this stuff about like this sort of like ethno-nationalism, right? These kinds of, at least the tenets of ethno-nationalism that are present in this Quebec sovereignty movement. Just recently, of course, this year is like the 30th anniversary of the of the 1995
Yeah.
referendum, we had a researcher who did her master's thesis on whiteness in the sovereignty movement, you know. And when you examine like the movement and these instances in the movement, you see it there where like it's always this sort of dynamic of like Quebec for Quebecers, right? And then of course there's of course a plurality of different people who in the sovereignty movement who approach it in different ways. But you do have that base of people who treat it like this hierarchy, right? Like this ethnic hierarchy that there is.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're like, how can we preserve this? How
You
can we
have to be
make sure-
grateful. You're an immigrant.
Yes,
you
yeah,
have to be
exactly,
great. Like
exactly.
Kim Tui. Like
No, exactly. That's the big
you
one. Yeah,
have to
yeah.
be a grateful immigrant. The minute you're not, fuck you. We shouldn't have let you here.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. They turn on them so quick, you know.
yeah. It's not like, okay, so it's not overtly racist, maybe, but it's
you got
this
the
idea that
under-
like
you
I
got
will
the
be
foundations for
I will be you as like a person of color or you as an immigrant, or you have to be eternally grateful that I'm being nice to you
Mm-hmm.
and that we let you in here in our stolen land, right? And the minute you're not grateful, you're a problem. To me, that's like,
Don't try to change the rules.
so you're tolerant and you're like pluralistic and you're multicultural as long as you're still the boss.
Yeah.
As long as you still get to tell the person how they can think and what they can say and how they can criticize you. And this idea of like, well, you know, I wasn't like when Mathieu Bock-Côté, when she said that, Mathieu Bock-Côté is like, well, why don't you move somewhere else? I'll list all the countries you can move to. Oh no, they won't accept you like we did. Like we're so special. And it's like, are you fucking serious, man?
I don't know.
Are we doing this shit?
This whole thing about the fragility, right? I mean, that's the thing about this identitarian stuff. I think is so.
Well, look, it's
Keeps
hard
giving-
if you've been a white Quebecer to like and all right, credit where credit's due. Quebecers were to some degree second-class citizens. Or no, they were
No,
like
absolutely, yeah,
for a
without
very
a
long
doubt.
time, and like they're only achieved a kind of parity in like the 60s. And then 30, 40 years later, you're told, hey, you're the dominant like people here, like stop being so oppressive. It breaks their brains because, and also like they were taught in history, like we are the victims of colonialism and we didn't perpetuate it. We were allies with, but like, that's a vast oversimplification of things. Jean-François Lisée, back when we were talking to each other, said I should read a book called Champlain's,
the
former head of the PQ and like one of the brain. He was like super influential around the time of the 95
He
referendum.
wrote the question. It was a
Super smart
speechwriter
guy.
for Parizeau.
Yeah, he wrote a brilliant article about the United States, like the CIA looking into Quebec around the time of nationalism, like how would they deal with us as a country? It's called In the Eye of the Eagle. Really smart guy. And but a great example of like the typical PQ voter who is like consider the, you know, when he was a kid, his dad owned the general store in a mining town, and so he would work there in the summer and shit. And like at one point, he tried to organize a union against his father. Like, and now like he's not the same guy at all, right? He's like he doesn't seem very pro union. He doesn't seem particularly pluralistic. He is kind of like he's a hardliner who sees the future of Quebec more in like French identity politics from France than he does in like what we've been through and what we've gone. I don't even know how I started on JF Lisée. Oh yeah, I don't know. I don't remember. I'm sorry. I'm
That's
so
all right.
tired.
That's okay. That's all right.
But I mean, like there's a lot of people in that party who have.
I think we're just talking about the shifts in the party, right? From like the way it used to be.
And they're like, in all likelihood, they're the next government.
Yeah.
And I don't know what like that means. I know that means, that means probably more fights with Ottawa. I know that means probably more discriminatory legislation.
Yeah.
I don't know much else because they don't really have much of a platform other than, you know, wokeism is bad, immigration is bad.
I expect that to continue under.
It could probably get worse.
Yeah. Because that's. I mean, you saw even like in like a non-election year, PSPP putting out stuff about like just beating the dead horse about immigrants. You know.
Yeah.
Like, in this very like high production quality video, non-election year, I'm like, wow, he's like send the tone years away. You know.
Well, he knows that's where European politics have been for longer than where American politics have been and North American. But like he sees it. He sees the populist anger. He sees people's quality of life diminishing as it is across Canada. And you need, like, nobody in Quebec, it would be inadvisable if you wanted an easy time in the National Assembly to run on something like, I will fix the healthcare system. No one has run on that ever.
Right.
Like in the last, no one, because they know. They can tweak it here and there, but it's ultimately like, it's a doomed project. They've rated it. The system is in collapse, has collapsed. Basically, we are careening towards privatization. No one's going to run on that. No one's going to run on, I'm going to fix our infrastructure. Because like we in Montreal have to spend $500 million a year just on our water infrastructure, just to maintain it, not to improve it. No one's going to run on education. We have one of the highest, if not the highest, dropout rates in Canada, probably one of the highest in North America. And no one's going to run on, those are the three big ones, right?
Yeah.
Roads, schools, hospitals. They can't run on that. So what can they run on?
The easy
Immigrants.
stuff. Yeah.
We're going to, Ottawa's trying to, Pierre Elliott Trudeau is hiding in your refrigerator. There's a woke person behind that curtain. Anyways.
What do you make of the Conservatives? Because when we talk about these kinds of new dynamics, right? Because that's something that's been on the rise over the last few elections. Is like the Quebec Conservative Party used to be just a non-player.
Yeah.
And then the last election, they're the party to gain the most kind of just by the pure vote volume. They're the biggest gain of
but their vote is spread so thin in so many different that like they didn't win a seat, and
of course.
Like they got a shitload of votes. I mean, the status quo isn't working, and people are the social contract is done. The government's not doing the basic things that we expect it to do, and the whole idea of neoliberalism. Most people might not be able to put their finger on what it's called because it's not something we teach in school. But this idea that like the free market will take care of all of us, and we're just going to manage it a bit as the government, and throw an empty land acknowledgement on top of that, because it's always we'll do the same things the Conservatives would, but we're going to smile and be hypocrites.
Of course.
Whereas the Conservatives are like, no, I hate you. I hate you. I'm going to say that I hate you, and got to respect my honesty. And you know what? I kind of do respect that more than pretending you don't.
Yeah.
And I don't see them being, you know what? Maybe, I don't know. But Éric Duhaime is a bit of a rodeo clown. I don't see him as a particularly serious person.
Well, there's talks about them stealing some of the CAQ.
They could.
CAQ MPs, right? People who want to jump.
And if we had a fair electoral system, they would have people in the National Assembly now, right? And they'd have a lot of people compared to what they have now. And the Liberals would have less. But I don't know. There's no electoral reform, so they're going to have the same challenges they had last time around. They might be able to eat into the CAQ, the CAQ's base. They might be able to get some seats in the Quebec City area. Who even knows what they're going to be like as a party? And who even knows who's going to run for them? Because so much of their early platform was just anti-vax stuff.
Yeah.
And
how do you survive outside of that? Yeah.
Find another issue people are fucking mad about, and throw some oil on the fire, throw some gas on the fire. And I think that's what that's the strength of that was the strength of Pierre Poilievre. He may not have been within what is the acceptable mainstream, but the current conservative leader, but he knows where the energy is in conservatism. And and with Duhaime, the energy right now is with all of these identity issues, is with all this extreme stuff. But I would say that the enthusiasm for that has probably been dampened now that you look to the South and you see okay, well, a lot of these kinds of people were elected in the United States, and all we see is perpetual chaos.
Right.
And I don't know, man. I haven't seen a single party that's housing is more unaffordable than it has ever been.
Yeah.
I'm going to fix that. The QS has done that to a certain degree, but
they're kind of in a bit of a tailspin as well. Maybe not a full-on tailspin.
No, they're in a tailspin. They're in a tailspin. I think if there was an election tomorrow, they wouldn't. They would get maybe 3 or 4 seats. Compared to the 11 or 10 that they have now. I don't even know.
They have 11. They're projected at falling down to 3 or 4.
Yeah,
exactly.
And
probably just staying within Montreal, most likely.
Yeah, and I think that too. As much as we can shit on all of the Conservatives and all the progressives in Quebec have done a very bad job connecting with ordinary working folks. But Manon Massé was probably the most relatable and likable and impactful member of that party has ever had. And she's retiring, and people like her because she's a straight shooter. Even if you disagree with her, you like her because you know someone like that. Whereas I think Gabriel Nadeau-Dubois, their former leader who's retired, he's never really had a job outside politics. He worked briefly doing some research for a union, and then after the student strike made him famous in 2012, then he moved over to this. And my understanding
He's
within
been a professional spokesperson.
yeah. And the decisions that happen at Québec Solidaire used to all happen with the members and the base, and increasingly they were just happening at his cottage with his inner circle, and people didn't like that.
At the central
Catherine Dorion left. A lot of their like Manon Massé left. A lot of their more relatable, more direct, more no bullshit people are gone. And I mean, I'm not saying like Saul Zanetti's a bad guy or they're bad, but like I don't see any of these guys as world beaters. I don't see any of these guys as getting out there and really putting the other parties in their place, because I mean, they're losing Vincent Marissal, who's like negotiating with the Parti Québecois. That too is a big problem. Like every former journalist that I can think of that has gotten involved in politics like has fucked it up, and they've made us all look like idiots. And no, Vincent Marissal is a brilliant journalist. Before going to Québec Solidaire, he was like in talks with the federal Liberals, and now he's in talks with the PQ. And it's like, dude, do you believe in anything? Like these are all like, come on, man.
Just pure
and,
ship jumping.
Like again, a nice guy and a great reporter, but like if you look at the list of politicians, like Martine Biron, who's now in government, she was part of she was minister of like the La Condition Féminine, right? Like women's issues. And she's funding an overtly anti-trans organization and anti-trans organizations. I mean, that's like a sidebar, but like that's on the public record. They've funded them. And she said, well, I personally disagree with them, but you know, the money would like, so that's the other former journalist. You know, and then you go federally, you got Mike Duffy, right? He was, he's still a senator, but nobody, you know, like, anyways, scandals. Yeah. Pamela Wallen, same thing, scandals.
Back to QS though. So that's all right. It's all right. I mean, I feel like it's been like the last like almost like 2-3 years that there's been just kind of like little friction, drama,
yeah.
right? It's like to me the biggest one for QS was when the MP for the MNA for Maurice Richard was made that statement that it was at like a fundraising dinner. Haroon, when he said that thing about like, you know, it's like in the National Assembly there are people who all he was saying.
Well, he said like, it in the National Assembly, the creation of the other, right? The like you know, whether it's this sort of like war against multiculturalism, you know what that means, right? Course, like it's not Ottawa you're fighting with. It's not Ottawa that's going to feel those effects. It's immigrants, it's people of color, it's people who don't look like the average Quebecer.
And then there's people from just what a unanimous wave of condemnation against Haroon. Even people in his own party, right?
Yeah.
People who are like, are you saying we're racist? It's like, there's no racist here. It's like, guys, come on. Like,
it's like in Quebec, we treat the accusation of racism as being worse than racism. And it's dude, like you... So Haroon was pilloried by his own party for telling the truth. That like... Yeah, objectively, like in Quebec politics, we make a lot of hay on the backs of people who don't look like us. And like that was, you know, that to me is another sign that they kind of lack political courage. Like, let's have these difficult conversations. Like, nobody wants to think of themselves as the bad guy, but we're kind of the bad guys. And, you know, it's not that simple. Like, we should look at ourselves critically. We should criticize ourselves. We should always be willing to
hit the brakes. What am I doing here?
Reevaluate. It's one thing, you know, and the way they treated him and the way they're still treating him, like why? Who would want to be a part of that party, right? Where like you can't speak openly, and it's like he would know. He's a visible minority. He's experienced it. The people in his community have experienced it. And you're telling this person like what you've experienced isn't real. I know what you've experienced because I'm the 27-year-old leader of this party or whatever. I don't know how old he is, but he's younger than I am. It's kind of depressing.
That's okay.
He's done more with his life. No, he hasn't.
Let's change topic. Does he have 30,000 followers?
Probably more. He's probably got more.
Wrong question.
He's a good-looking guy, that little man.
I mean, I guess the whole thing here is like you have this party, Quebec Solidaire, the supposed progressive voice in Parliament, which I think still is. I think they can still come through sometimes.
Yeah, they are progressive, of course.
Statements, and they have great people in that party working at the bases. But the thing is, it's like you have this sort of like real, like I don't know what it's almost like some force of gravity that's enacting on all these political parties. That's just kind of like just tearing them apart, right? And my question is like, who has the power to like actually like withstand that kind of like tearing apart process and actually stand on principle. And it's kind of difficult to see right now. At this
It's
current
hard,
juncture.
man. It's hard. We don't have a political system that fosters courage. We don't. But I think what's amazing to me is that, like, okay, look at Zoran Mamdani. Like, it's the easy example we all use, but like, nobody wanted him to win in the party. Nobody knew who he was. Yeah. And he ran a campaign of authenticity, but it was joyful. And like, he's talking about people being unable to afford things, people living in poverty. He's talking about how hard it's been under Trump, and he's doing it from a place of like enthusiasm and joy. And I think they lack that, and they lack the kind of basic connection to working people. Like, you need to. I was asked, this is a dumb example. This is an example of how the left works in Quebec. I was asked to participate in something recently where, like, we're going to get some leftists, some progressive voices together. And then I asked if my friend could come, who is a little more spicy. And they were like, oh, let me ask. They consulted the group, and someone in the group has a problem with your friend. It's like, dude, if you can't get 10 of us together, like, despite some bullshit drama, nothing's going to change. You have to be able to sit in a room with people you disagree with.
Of course.
And figure out something that works, and nobody seems to be willing to do that. And yet there is this huge appetite for change. There's never been, like, distrust in the media is super high. Distrust in our institutions is super high. Any public polling will put it like in 40s or even 50s of people who don't. And this creates a huge opportunity for like an ordinary out of left field person to come in and say, let's change it all. And there's a will to change it all, but
I mean that's the kind of like attitude that elects people like Trump, right? That kind of that when we're talking about that kind of like
play not to lose attitude.
When we're talking about that kind of growing kind of like background level of people whose only politics is one of like discontent with the system, right? Then it's gonna continue growing with stuff like this, right? And it's. The question is who's going to take advantage of that, and so far it's almost only, at least in the Quebec and Canadian context, almost only been right wing people.
Yeah. I mean, and it's easy to attack. Like, if you're posting you have 3 MNAs. Like, that's
say
not
whatever
a lot.
You want to say.
None of them, except for Pascal Bérubé, have been a part of previous governments. You don't have a record to defend. You can just say whatever the hell you want, and it's all good because nothing means anything. Right? Just put it out there and hope that you don't go, like, just try and get Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon's, like, when did he transition from being a federalist to being a sovereignist? There are competing explanations based on his own public statements. There's one version that says the first time he voted was in the 95 referendum. Okay. Voted yes. He's a sovereignist. Then there's another version of his political history where he was a federalist until the sponsorship scandal.
Of course.
And of course, like, a lot of people, it shook their confidence in the Liberals, as it should, right? But like, he then, as a lawyer at Stikeman Elliott, like one of the biggest firms in Canada, he defended the Liberals, and he attacked the journalist who uncovered the sponsorship scandal, tried to get his sources. Like, so explain, and when he originally, his position on multiculturalism, when he first wanted to get involved with the PQ was, I'm not going to get involved with a PQ where my friends with hijabs can't serve in the party. And like, okay, so you just don't have friends with hijabs anymore?
Where'd they go?
So like, I know he's going to fucking complain about this. I think he's a grifter. I think he's an intellectual grifter. I think he's a smart guy. I think he's not as, like Jean-François Lisée, he's too clever by half. He's eventually going to outsmart himself. It might not be before he's elected premier and does a bunch of damage, but he will eventually outsmart himself. And like, even recently, he's tried to make more of a turn to like, well, we might need some immigrants. And like, it's very hard to believe that after
all these
after like months and months of like, accepting members in his party that are like essentially have the Turner Diaries under their pillow at home, you're suddenly pro-immigrant. Like, come on, dude. We're not stupid.
Be honest.
I guess we are, though. Because he might get elected.
Well, I mean, I guess that's the thing about the disintegration, I guess, of journalism, right? The people who would otherwise keep track of these things, hold into power.
Yeah, well, I mean, but journalism is just, it's part of the, like, when people accuse the CBC of liberal bias, like, a lot of people will throw themselves to defend the CBC. And, we need a public broadcaster and we need a reliable public broadcaster. But what CBC puts out there is basically within the spectrum of small C conservatism to big L liberalism. That's it. And that has shifted to the right. And we, things are collapsing and you can try and change and innovate, or you can play games. And right now, everyone in Quebec is just playing games. There's no real solid agenda that you think has a chance of succeeding. The only people not playing games right now are the unions. The unions are not fucking around. They're out there. They're putting pressure because there is this dramatic anti-union legislation coming up, and I regret that it took us this long to address it. But if Bill 2 passes, unions effectively don't really have much power anymore, and workers just have to accept whatever the boss says they do.
Right. Yeah.
And that's scary.
Yeah,
but
it's clearly off the heels of the Front Commun, right? Just trying to take away their ability to actually leverage. I mean, you saw the how the STM workers union, how the STM was responding to the union's demands and the strike, and they're just kind of waiting. They're waiting for this bill to pass because they know.
You gotta ace up your sleeve. Just wait it out, and then impose these draconian conditions on your workers. And we'll see, but just if you're looking at this and you're depressed, you can organize. You can unions. The reason we have a day off on Saturdays, unions. The reason we have mat leave in Canada, the postal workers, unions. All of these rights that we take, child labor laws, unions.
People have died for the 8-hour workday. Because it used to be much longer.
This is not a thing that just disappeared and we can't do it anymore. People are more disenfranchised and more desperate now than they've been in at least a generation. So, don't worry. You could do it. Not me. Why not? I'm too old. 40. On this medium? No. But the era of it's too big, it's too powerful, not me. I think if there will be a rebirth of progressive politics in Quebec, it's going to be at the union level. And I mean, the most effective criticism of this government, you could say, was voiced the other night on Tout le monde en parle when Magali Picard, the leader of the FTQ, went in there and just made the minister look like an idiot and said okay, well, you want me to explain why I think your law is stupid? Well, you're not. This new law would not allow a union would allow union members to opt out of political activities. And would not allow unions to sue the government on behalf of their membership, like the teachers union did for hijabi wearing teachers. Right? They're suing the government. They're participating in this Supreme Court lawsuit. And so she said, on the one hand, you're breaking your own laws. Quebec labor law stipulates that unions have to fight for their members. If their members get in trouble, if their that's the law.
That's the arrangement.
That's the law. It's in black and white. And now you have this piece of legislation that says, no, ignore that. Unions can't do that. So you want us to fight for our members, but you don't want us to fight for our members. And that's the kind of that's what we're up against. And I think that's what, and I say we, I'm not a member of the union. I used to be a member of a union, but that's what average workers are against. They're against or up against. They're against the government that doesn't respect them, that wants whatever the bosses want, because if we're not nice to the bosses with free trade, the bosses will just go to another district that has cheaper labor. And, instead of having someone who wants to fight, we have people who want to have a career in politics. And I think that, it's not a great thing, not great for our democracy. So, if you want to get involved, you don't have to be a member of a union. You can organize at work. You can march alongside people who you agree with. But there are big fights coming. No matter who gets elected in next year in Quebec, there's a lot of big fights. There's big fights now, and there will be more big fights ahead because public funding's collapsing on a bunch of things: universities, healthcare, all this shit. It's going to be a street fight, and street fights are won in the streets. You got to get out there.
There you go, folks. Christopher Curtis from the Rover coming on, talking to us about the state of provincial politics and why you got to fight.
Well, yeah. Anyways, thanks, man.
Of course.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Thank you so much for tuning in, everyone. Thanks for listening. Take care.